Noah had never been one for extravagance. He was a young man of modest beginnings, growing up in a family that taught him the value of hard work and simple pleasures. His parents had run a small grocery store in town, scraping by to provide for him and his siblings. For Noah, those early years had instilled a sense of responsibility, pushing him to set up his own business the moment he could, dreaming of a life built on his terms without debts or dependencies. Starting with little more than a rented space and a handful of borrowed tools, Noah worked tirelessly to launch his small repair business. At first, it was tough: long hours, minimal pay, and the inevitable worry of whether customers would return. But over time, his reputation grew. People admired Noah's reliability and his knack for getting things done with an honest smile. His clients spread the word, saying he could be trusted to fix anything, be it a broken appliance or a bad day, with his steady presence and genuine kindness. For Noah, success meant staying true to his values. Despite his growing client base, he was never tempted to expand too fast or chase profit at any cost. He preferred a steady pace, one that left him time to sit with friends over a simple meal or chat with his family over the phone. Wealth had never been his goal, contentment was, and he felt he'd achieved that. Every now and then he would think about his future beyond work. He'd picture a partner who shared his love for a quiet life, someone who understood the beauty of simplicity. Little did he know that this dream would soon lead him to someone who seemed to be the perfect match but would challenge everything he thought he knew. Noah's life took an unexpected turn one rainy afternoon at a small coffee shop he liked to visit after a long workday. The shop, with its mismatched furniture and warm lighting, felt like a second home to him, a place where the noise of the world quieted down. On that particular day, as he waited for his coffee, he noticed a woman sitting near the window, reading a worn paperback. She had an unassuming presence, dressed simply in a wool sweater and jeans, with hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her face was partially hidden by the book, but she looked deeply focused, lost in her own world. Curiosity tugged at him. There was something about her that felt familiar yet entirely new. Gathering his courage, he approached her table and, after a few hesitant words, found himself drawn into a lively conversation. Her name was Emma. She was charming and grounded, her laugh was genuine, and her eyes sparkled when she talked about her favorite books and travels. Despite their different backgrounds, they shared an easy connection, one that Noah hadn't felt with anyone before. Their first meeting led to another and then another until these chance encounters became intentional. Emma seemed to cherish the same things Noah did: quiet walks, simple dinners, meaningful conversations. It was as though she understood the comfort of a life without pretense. Noah found himself captivated, fascinated by her ability to talk about big dreams without a hint of arrogance, always grounding them in the practicalities of life. Yet, there was a quietness around her past that puzzled him. She rarely mentioned her family or her life before they met, only hinting once or twice that they were a bit traditional. She'd smile and change the subject whenever he tried to ask more, her reluctance mingling with an apologetic glance. To Noah, it was a mystery, but one he could overlook, assuming her family background was simply different from his. He trusted her, her sincerity, her warmth. He convinced himself that any secret, if there was one, was probably small, perhaps an old wound she preferred not to share. With each day, his feelings for Emma grew, making him more certain than ever that he'd found the person he wanted to spend his life with. He knew her silence about her family could mean anything, but he believed that love was about the present, about building something real with the person in front of him, rather than inquiring about the past. And so, he chose not to press her further, content to let the mystery be. After all, he thought, wasn't life about accepting someone for who they showed themselves to be? Emma, for him, was someone he trusted without question, and he was confident she would reveal more about herself in time. Noah's days were filled with a new sense of purpose and joy as his relationship with Emma grew. Their connection felt as natural as breathing, and he often found himself marveling at how easily she fit into his life. Emma's companionship seemed to brighten every corner of his world, filling spaces he hadn't realized were empty. Together, they made a habit of exploring new places, even if it was just a nearby park or a quiet corner of the city they hadn't noticed before. To Noah, everything was an adventure with her. As the seasons passed, so did the milestones in their relationship. Emma was there to celebrate each one, bringing her warmth and laughter into every small moment. The everyday simplicity of their life together felt just right to Noah, as though each shared day was a promise that they'd found something special and lasting. It was no surprise to those close to Noah when he decided to propose. His friends could see how happy he was, and his family was thrilled, sensing how deeply Emma had touched his heart. Noah planned a modest proposal, Nothing extravagant, just the two of them on a calm evening by the river where they often went to talk about dreams and plans. He could picture it perfectly. He would tell her how she made him feel complete, how he saw their future together as bright and steadfast. When the evening came, everything felt right. Emma's eyes were wide with surprise and joy as Noah knelt before her, the city lights reflecting off the water behind him. She accepted without hesitation, her voice filled with emotion, and as he slipped the ring onto her finger, Noah felt a swell of happiness he couldn't put into words. The future he dreamed of with Emma was no longer just a hope, it was becoming real. But shortly after their engagement, Emma brought up the topic of their wedding, suggesting they have it in a grand venue she knew of. It struck Noah as unexpected. They had often talked about sharing a quiet life, one without unnecessary glamour. The idea of a lavish wedding seemed out of character for the Emma he knew, but he brushed his doubts aside. She seemed genuinely excited, and Noah wanted to make her happy. When he voiced his preference for a simple ceremony, Emma only smiled, saying, "Let's make this day special, just once." Her words hinted at a longing he couldn't quite place, something that made him feel she was searching for more than just a wedding venue. Although Noah found the suggestion puzzling, he reasoned that perhaps it was a dream she hadn't shared before. He didn't press her for details, choosing instead to trust her vision, convinced that this was a small compromise in the grander scheme of their life together. Still, a hint of doubt lingered. The extravagance Emma envisioned seemed like a far reach from the humble life he'd known and valued. He tried to ignore the quiet worry that surfaced, but it left him wondering what exactly had changed. Noah reminded himself that love meant understanding, and maybe this was his chance to support Emma in a way he hadn't yet understood. In the end, Noah chose to go along with her plans, telling himself that this one day wouldn't define their future together. He believed that after the wedding, they'd return to the life they both cherished. A life built on simplicity, honesty, and the love they had nurtured from the very start. The day of the wedding arrived, and Noah felt a familiar calm as he got ready, surrounded by a few close friends. He hadn't thought much about the details. His focus was on the promise he'd soon make. The vows he'd prepared echoed in his mind as he left his apartment, thinking only of Emma and the future they would build together. He imagined their life after today would return to the simplicity he treasured. But his confidence faltered as he approached the venue. Emma had chosen a grand estate on the outskirts of the city, complete with manicured gardens and marble pillars that towered over the entrance. Rows of luxury cars lined the drive, and high-profile guests moved between them, dressed in gowns and suits that glittered in the afternoon sun. Noah hesitated, feeling like he'd stepped into a world completely foreign to him. He glanced down at his own suit, a modest piece he'd chosen to feel both smart and himself. Now, surrounded by designer labels and polished shoes, it suddenly seemed out of place. He took a steadying breath, reminding himself this was Emma's day too, and he wanted her to have something she'd dreamed of. As he walked through the crowd, a sense of unease grew. People greeted him with polite nods and distant smiles, as if sizing him up. There was no warmth in their gaze, just a vague curiosity that unsettled him. He tried to ignore it, but fragments of whispered conversations drifted his way. The mechanic? Surprised her father agreed to this? One wonders what she sees in him, given her family's status. Not exactly our kind of crowd. Each comment hit him like a wave, leaving him disoriented. Was this what Emma had meant when she said her family was traditional? He felt as if he were piecing together a puzzle that had been sitting right in front of him all along, but that he'd only now begun to see clearly. Emma's family wasn't simply traditional. They were wealthy, powerful, and highly regarded in society, a world he had never known, let alone fit into. The understated woman he'd met in the coffee shop had hidden a life completely foreign to him. She hadn't just downplayed her background, she'd concealed it. He turned to look for her in the crowd, hoping to see something familiar that would ease the growing tension in his chest. He finally spotted her across the garden, dressed in a stunning white gown, effortlessly charming as she greeted guests with grace. She looked like she belonged here, moving seamlessly between family members and friends who greeted her warmly, oblivious to the turmoil that now churned within Noah. A wave of confusion washed over him. How could she have kept this from him? He felt betrayed, wondering if he had been wrong about her all along. It was as if the woman he loved, the woman he'd planned his life with, was somehow a stranger to him now. Yet as he looked at her, a memory tugged at him. The small, unassuming cafe where they'd met, her quiet laughter as they bonded over their love for simplicity and meaning. The woman standing before him, dressed in elegance, was still that same Emma in some essential way, wasn't she? He felt torn. Part of him wanted to confront her, to ask why she hadn't told him. But even as he struggled to reconcile this truth, he found himself unable to look away. He remembered why he had fallen for her. Her warmth, her kindness, and the genuine moments they'd shared. Those things were real, weren't they? They couldn't be erased by wealth or status. Noah took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could walk away, refuse to take part in a world that contradicted everything he valued. Or he could stand by her side, understanding that she had chosen him, despite the life she came from. Maybe she had her reasons for keeping it hidden, reasons that she hadn't yet shared. With a mix of doubt and determination, he resolved to see it through. Today he would walk down the aisle and speak his vows, not to Emma as her family or their guests saw her, but to the woman he'd met, the woman he believed he knew. The Emma he'd come to love beyond anything he could explain. Taking his place at the altar, Noah watched as she walked toward him. Her beauty was radiant, but he looked past it, into her eyes, searching for the woman he loved. Her smile softened as their eyes met, and in that moment he chose to trust in what they had. No matter the secrets, no matter the differences, he knew he wanted a life with her. And as she reached him, Noah let himself believe that their love could bridge the worlds they came from. Together they'd build something real, something grounded in truth, no matter where they stood today. Noah stood there, feeling the weight of a choice only he could make. He could sense the eyes of Emma's family, the high society guests, and the whispers that would continue long after the ceremony. But none of that mattered to him now. Looking into Emma's eyes, he could see the same woman he had fallen in love with. The woman who'd listened to his dreams, shared in his laughter, and understood the depth of his values. Taking a deep breath, Noah began his vows, his voice calm but resolute. "Emma," he started, letting each word carry his heart's truth, "from the moment I met you in that small coffee shop, you changed my world in a way I never expected. You showed me what it means to connect with someone who sees beyond what's on the surface." Emma's expression softened, and he could see a hint of emotion rise in her gaze. There was something in her eyes, a glimmer of understanding, as though she recognized the meaning behind each word. "I didn't fall in love with where you came from, or with any part of the world around us today," Noah continued. "I fell in love with you, the woman I saw in that cafe, the one who loved simple things, who cherished moments over material. I know now that I didn't understand every part of your life. And maybe I don't need to. Because the person I choose to marry today is the Emma who laughed with me, who shared her heart and dreams, and who made me believe in a future built on trust and love." A ripple of surprise went through the audience. Noah's words, stripped of pretense, were meant only for Emma, but they seemed to reach everyone in attendance. He could feel the weight of the room's expectations falling away, leaving only the truth between them. He squeezed her hands gently, and a smile broke across her face, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The silence between them was filled with understanding, a promise that felt even stronger than the vows themselves. Noah finished, his voice steady. "Today I choose us, for who we are, not for what anyone else expects. And I vow to stand by you the way we are right now, because that's the love I know will last." Emma took a deep breath, visibly moved. In that moment, it was clear that whatever unspoken barrier lay between them had faded, and all that remained was the trust and acceptance they had built from the very beginning. The audience, which had been silent in shock, slowly broke into applause, and the ceremony moved forward with a sense of authenticity and warmth that transcended the earlier tension. Noah knew that, whatever lay ahead, this was the beginning of a life based on honesty and a love that could weather anything. In the months following their wedding, Noah and Emma worked to build a life that blended their worlds. Emma, grateful for Noah's unwavering commitment, slowly opened up about her family, revealing pieces of the past she'd kept hidden. For the first time, Noah understood the weight of her background and the expectations that had come with it. She'd chosen him to escape a world that had felt confining, a life she couldn't see herself in. Emma's family, though initially hesitant, began to see Noah's integrity and the genuine love he had for their daughter. There were moments of discomfort, dinners with conversations Noah struggled to relate to, glances that hinted at old reservations. But his quiet strength and dedication won them over. Emma's parents came to recognize the happiness their daughter radiated, finding pride in her choice. Through mutual respect, Noah and Emma created a life they both valued. Together, they honored their different backgrounds without letting them dictate the course of their marriage. Their story became one of acceptance, a love built on trust, commitment, and the courage to step beyond appearances. Noah knew that in choosing Emma, he'd found more than a partner. He'd found a love that was real and lasting, one that had grown stronger because of, not in spite of, where they'd come from.